Hey everyone, this is Patrick from Vicious Computers. I'm not sure how many people are original subscribers from over a decade ago, but back then my primary content was technical guides that were captured and narrated from my computer. That made sense since I was teaching things that you would do from your computer. A lot of it was technical stuff like coding, automation, video encoding, and even IT stuff like learning different certifications. That's how the channel started, just a man with a passion to teach things that either I couldn't find other people teaching, or it was really complicated, so it took a special skill set to know how to break it down and make it easy to digest. And that was kind of my calling card. But that was a long time before I had cameras, lights, or a place to film, so it worked at the time. But now, even though the place I have now is still cramped, at least I have a space to record, and I've expanded to do more things. More often than not, I need to cover things that are not at a computer screen, but I still want to make a guide that's easy to follow and easy to watch, just like the ones I used to make. So today I'm going to try a bit of a mix of the old techniques and a bit of new to create a hybrid approach. So now onto the topic at hand. Today I'm going to be bringing you a very detailed full build guide for the RD6030 Lab Power Supply. I'll be using my photography skills to photo document the build each step of the way, and then doing narration to explain the build process. That will make it easy to follow and understand, ensuring high quality visuals, including the tiny pieces and parts that are usually impossible to capture on video, and it should keep the pace nice and fluid. For any of the really tricky processes that I think would be better documented as a video, I'll do them as a small micro video so you can see those parts in a video format without having to have the entire process slowed down and becoming 30 minutes long. So I already bought an RD6030 from AliExpress previously, and I use that in my other videos as a piece of equipment. I didn't need another one, but I bought this one from Amazon the other day with one purpose, which was just to make this guide. Since there was literally no build documentation anywhere, well, I'm sure most of you can figure it out. This will hopefully save you a ton of time and potentially costly mistakes, as it's easy to build out of order and then have to undo and redo many of the different steps. I also have some ideas for improvement that we'll cover, as there were one or two small things I didn't like that I think have room for improvement. So I'll go ahead and cover those ideas and show you how to implement them, but I'll still be showing you the original build intentions as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so originally I was thinking I would just put all the pictures in my video editor and do a voiceover on that, but I'm learning a new program. I'm learning DaVinci Resolve, and I always did voiceovers in Sony Vegas. And so this will actually probably be faster and easier and a little bit more personable. So we're going to do the unboxing and the build in this format. We'll go through the pictures and talk about it. So in the main kit, the box is going to have all the different accessories. This one bag has all of the things that came with the case and the power supply. And we'll move on from that picture. The power supply itself, which is the RD6030 This is what the front looks like. The case has got vents cut into the front there on both sides. We got an exhaust vent on the back, some openings. Of course, you'll see what those are for soon. The front of the case, and it is actually a clamshell. It's in two pieces, so it just comes right apart like that. And then we've got the control unit, the front control module that is in a separate box. And then once you open that up, you'll see the control unit and another bag of things. So in that bag of things, as we explode it out, there is the Wi-Fi module. You can order it without the Wi-Fi module, but I did want that. And then we've got the L brackets. These are right angle metal spade bit connectors. We've got an extra fuse, which is in there in case you blow your fuse. If you hook up the power supply without changing the appropriate voltage first because of your region, that'll blow the fuse. So the one I ordered from AliExpress, it was set to 240. The one that I got from Amazon was set to 120. So you have to double check that. These spade connectors, I can only assume that they're for hooking the front control module to the power supply, because obviously they came with the control module, but they're useless and I don't like them, and you'll see why in a bit. And then the last bag there is our temperature sensor. The actual control unit, this is the view of it from the back, and I just wanted to give you a quick look at that. The top right hand corner is where our power gets connected to the power supply. This is different on the 6030. The smaller, less powerful units have a green Phoenix connector, which is removable, and it has screws in it, so you can just insert wires and screw them down. So it's much easier to install than this particular one, and also we'll cover that. And I just took multiple pictures, lots of detail there. Now let's go ahead and open those up and just take a closer look. Our Wi-Fi board, our right angle, our fuse, our spades, and our temperature sensor. The other angles to see everything here, there's a couple things I want to point out as we just go through. So I have multiple angles to see everything in great glory. And this is actually where we're going to start our install. So on this picture, what I wanted to point out and show you is this connection right here. That 8-pin connection, that is going to be for the Wi-Fi module. So that'll be the first thing we install. So here's your Wi-Fi module, and those 8 pins right there are obviously going to line up, and you can only put it in one way because of the physical space. And then there's the connector it's going to go down to, and once it's inserted, it's going to look like that. It just fits neatly inside. You definitely want to go ahead and put that in and not do it later because it gets harder. Once we go through the rest of the bags and the rest of the pieces and parts, this is what you get. You get the zip ties. We get our on and off switch, our power input port, and each one of those a nice close up. This is going to be the temperature sensor extension cable. These are the power leads that connect the back incoming power to the input on the power supply. And these are the power leads that connect the front control module to the power supply. Those bags that one big bag has smaller bags inside of it with a bunch of screws, and this can get kind of confusing. This is one of the things that probably would have driven people nuts trying to build this without instructions. And you also get this bag, and you probably have no idea what that's for. And what this is, it's actually a seal. It helps when you install everything together create a more airtight seal so that the proper airflow comes through the unit to cool it. So I'll show you that in a second too. So let's go ahead and start with that actually. Opening that up, you see it comes with its own little bag of screws, and there's the actual unit, and it does tell you what it's for, so that's nice. So we're going to install that first, and it goes here on the back of the power supply. So look at the back right hand corner where the fan's at and the screws that came with it. So those are going to be the appropriate size. It's going to look like this when you put it together. So the top portion is extending a little bit further out to close this gap, so we have an airtight seal. These two openings are large enough for the screws to go through from the outside in, but it's the actual shield here, the shroud, it's actually probably a better word, that has the threading for the screws to actually tighten. So you're going to put it together like this. It's going to have the screws tightened from the outside in, and it's going to give you this nice little seal, this shroud. So once you put this inside of the case, the fan from the power supply will create a vacuum from the front, which will then create a vacuum in the case, which will cool everything down. Now the next thing, let's build the back of the case. So we need our power input port, and we need our power toggle switch. The bags that were included, let's go ahead and open those up. We got black screws and 2 bags of silver screws and 4 feet. So our 4 feet, the black screws, these are going to be pan screws is what I would call these. And the other ones are called flathead screws, even though they're Phillips screwdriver. So call them what you will. I'm not a screw guy, but they are used differently. And that's another thing you need to know. So while we're making the guide, let me show you that they are not the same. Let's do a close-up here. So the threading and the size and everything of this pan head screw and that pan head screw, the black ones and the silver ones, are the same. But I think there's a very, very small difference in diameter here, perhaps. But really the big difference is just the head of the screws. And also the black and silver have a slightly different length. So the black screws are slightly longer. So to install this, let's go ahead and just take our power switch, and it goes from the outside, and we're just going to snap it into place. That's fairly easy. It can go in either orientation, but I did prefer when I put it together to have the pins further towards the outside edge, because we're going to be running wires, and once the power supply is installed in here, we'll have more space to the right. So that's kind of why we did it that way. And the screws that we're going to use, you wouldn't know which ones to use without instructions, so you're going to be wondering which one to pick. In this case, we're picking this one, the one that has the beveled edge, and not the one with the pan head. And I'll show you what happens if you try the one with the pan head. It doesn't quite go in, versus this will nice and neatly insert. And then this is what it would look like. There's just no screw sticking out because the face is preventing it from coming far enough in, but this one looks fine. So we're going to use 2 of those screws to fasten that in. We'll start with our power connections. The short brown wire, these are the kind of things that are easy to overlook. This is actually larger than this. And so if you ended up putting it on backwards, you would end up screwing yourself and have to deal with unassembling it, and it can be a pain in the butt. So what we're going to do to connect this one is we're going to take the larger connection and put it on one of the 2 pins on the switch. It doesn't actually matter which one. And if you look at the orientation, the bottom or center pin here, that is your ground. And this is going to be your live power line, the brown connection. And it's going to be the closest one to the switch. And just another picture of that for a different view. And now we're going to take our other brown cable and connect it to whatever lead wasn't used from the first connection. That's why I said it can go either way. This is not a polarity driven switch. Our next wire is going to be the green and yellow. Now technically this green and yellow and the blue wire are exactly the same, so they could be interchanged, but we're going to follow the standard that they had intended. So this is going to be ground, and that goes in that center pin. And then last will be blue, and that will go to the last remaining pin, and this is going to be our neutral. So the way it will look once you get those all connected is you've got your 3 leads that can go from the back of the case towards the front, where we'll be hooking them up later. The next thing to do, let's go ahead and get those feet put on. So we'll grab our 4 feet and we'll grab 4 of the black screws. It just made sense that the black screws were the ones to be used because the feet themselves have depth, so they're going to take up some of the screw threads. So that's why the black screws were included, was for the feet. So the markings here, you can see that this has threads in it for a screw, but this doesn't, and this doesn't. So it's these 4 corner pieces that we're going to be now hunting for to attach the feet from the bottom side. So there's one of those on each of the 4 corners, and you'll probably pretty easily find those. And then once you flip the case over, the view from the other side is just the appropriate view from the other side. You'll see the only holes with threads. So go ahead and take those black screws and fasten your feet down, and you'll get all 4 of those feet on fairly easily, and you're all set. Next, let's look at the bottom of the power supply. So here what we're looking at is the fact that it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 threaded attachment points. So we're going to be using those attachment points to fasten the power supply to the case. And here's a close-up of those so you know exactly what they look like on every single edge. And the extension cable, I just kind of have that in here because I was like, we might want to work on that next too. So we'll go ahead and get that installed real quick because we have to finish up the back of the case. So let's grab 2 of our pan head screws, and we're grabbing our extension cable. And the way that this attaches is in the back of the case. You're going to find a small opening, and you've got 2 threaded posts. So go ahead and just put that in the center here and use 2 of the pan head screws, the silver ones, to get that fastened up. And now we're done with this back area. So if you missed this now, you'd have to tear it apart and redo it. If you missed the shroud, you'd have to tear it apart and redo it. So that's why following these order of operations is going to save you so much time. Now the power supply, I just want to call out, I mean, they do it here. They have a bright yellow sticker on it. but there is a voltage selector, 110, 220. If you don't get it right, you blow that fuse. That's why they give you the extra fuse, but then you'd have to go and deal with soldering a tiny fuse, and it would be a pain in the butt. You don't want to deal with it. The Amazon order came with it set to 110. The China order came with it set to 220. So just make sure you double check and set it correctly for your region. And to attach the power supply to the case, the way I did it was I knew every one of you would have this box handy because it's the box it came in. I just put the power supply upside down on that box. And I just wanted to show you what the alignment looks like real quick. So the power supply is going to be sitting in here like this, leaving some space to the left. The shroud will be fitting tightly to the right. And then we have the opening space in the front where the vents are for air intake and the face for the control module. It's not fastened down, so what we're going to do is make note of this orientation, match up these holes is the best visual indicator for the positioning, and then do this. I put the power supply upside down, I put the case upside down, and then I can use that to fasten it together, because otherwise the power supply would just be falling away from the bottom of the case, and you have no good way to access it. So this gives you a very easy way to access it. And just go shimmy it around and get your holes lined up for your screws. So you'll see the bigger opening. There's no threaded anything here, but we do have our fastener holes right there. So match those up on all the corners. And you're going to use your pan head screws for this one. Basically, the smaller tapered screws, there's only a few cases we use those, and it's on the case, except for the power adapter on the back. So we're going to go ahead and use the pan head screws. There's 2 in the front, 1 in the center, and 2 in the back. So it'll be 5 altogether. And that will now have the power supply attached to the case. The next thing to make note of is now the front connections on the power supply. This is going to be the load, aka the hot side. This is going to be our neutral. This is going to be our ground. So these 3 are going to be the incoming power. I guess I should be annotating this, huh? I got the power. Hot, neutral, ground, right there. All right. Now you have 3 negative and 3 positive terminals. So those are the connections. And this is a voltage adjustment. Don't really need to touch it because we are using a control module. So we're good to go here with what our connections are. We're going to move into actually attaching everything. So the first one I would connect would be our ground wire. So it goes in that 3rd one, as we just said a minute ago. And going to the back again, just to show you those connections. If you needed a refreshment, we have brown going to the switch, ground coming off the center, neutral coming off the far edge. Now, the next wire I chose to install was going to be the blue wire. So neutral is installed. And then the live hot wire, and that will complete the intake portion of the power supply. Now, we're moving into the power leads. And this is actually where I'm going to take a break and jump back to a live video I recorded earlier, because this is one of the parts that I wanted to cover in more detail. All right, so if everyone's been following along with me so far, I'm hoping this has been really easy to follow based on the fact that I'm doing photography and narration instead of video. Because like I said, the single cameraman gig is not very fun and it's very difficult. But this part, we're gonna have to switch to video because I gotta show you this stuff and I wanna actually talk about it. At this point in time, if you followed along, this is kind of all you've got left. There's these 2 small right angle pieces of metal, a fuse, these spade bits that are uncrimped. There's your temperature sensor, our 4 pre-done connections to actually put the power supply face and connect it to the power supply that's inside. All of our small screws, the tapered screws that we need to put the case on, and there's going to be 1 or 2 extras, I think, when we're done, because as you can see, we had 1 extra pan head screw or flat head screw, whatever you want to call those. The black one, we have 1 extra. The silver one, we have 1 extra. That thing is built and ready to go. The only thing left is to wire up and connect the actual control module. This is my biggest issue I have with the power supply. I really think that RD should do something better than this. And it very much caught me off guard, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to make this video. There's 3 ways that I'm going to do this today. I'm going to show you the way it was intended, the way that I did it on the last build, and the way that I want to do it on this build. So the way you're supposed to do it. My issue is this, you're buying this as a kit, and it's very much what I'd call a bolt together kit. So you expect to need a screwdriver and maybe a couple of basic tools at the most. It's not what I call a component level kit where you're getting a bag of resistors and capacitors and you're soldering and building it yourself. The final step here for these power leads is actually to solder them onto those right angle metal pieces, because if you look in here, this is something different on the 6030. Those 2 terminals are what we have to connect to. It no longer has a Phoenix connector, which has a screw terminal strip on it, and you can just put the wires in, tighten it up, and it's easy and it's done. We have a very small space to work with, and it's no easy way to access it. Even if you were to take one of these, because originally what it looked like to me, I still don't know 100% what these are for. Maybe they're just extras in case something breaks, but you can't even really put these on there, which is why I think was the original intention, was you're supposed to take these 2 wires and crimp them inside of this to make a parallel cable. And you can't do that because there's not enough space for these to even fit in there. So you have to use these right angle pieces. So what I did on the last build was I screwed these on to give myself vertical standoffs that were easier to access. And I had a pre-existing kit of those types of connectors. And what I did was I just stripped back some insulation on the wires, twisted them together, and then crimped it down into one of these. And then I fitted that to the standoffs, and it worked fine. But I don't like having so many separate pieces for a high amperage connection, and I don't know what those are rated for, and I don't know what these are rated for. So this time, it hasn't been delivered yet. It's due for delivery today. What I ordered were eyelets that are actually bent to a right angle that you can crimp on. So instead of crimping this on and then attaching it to that, I want to actually just have one piece that crimps to the wires that attaches directly. And I had to buy them, I think it's a package of 100. So if this video has enough following, honestly, what I might do is allow viewers to buy what they need from me, so you don't have to pay $20 plus shipping. You can send me $3 on PayPal, and I can mail you in the mail like the connectors you need. That's kind of my idea. But anyways, the way you're intended to do this is actually soldering these 2 wires together to those. And I just don't think that's right for the customers, because probably not many people out there are buying a bolt together kit expecting to need a soldering iron. And even me right now, my wife is in her office doing trivia where my soldering station is, so I'm going to have to try to use my portable soldering iron, which I haven't used in forever. So soldering it is the proper solution. I'll show you that on video. I'll show you how these work, and then if they get delivered, I'll show you what I think is the best solution. You're going to take your 2 leads, and these leads are already pre-tinned, so we don't have to tin our wires. The opening is obviously where the screws are going to come through, so this is what we have to work with. We're going to want to get these 2 wires on there. So the first thing we're going to want to do is put some solder on this. Iron is at 300 Celsius. Let's get just a tiny bit on the iron so it makes better contact. Transfer that heat and melt some solder down. Like that. Take our wires. Some helping hands might help. Problem is that I can't find the weighted base for mine, so they're not very helpful right now. Just put them on top. They're already pre-tinned, and we're just going to make sure we have a little bit of solder on here and transfer the heat through, and then everything will kind of just melt together. Damn it. I got it perfect now. I just need to have them in place. So enough solder's on there. That's a good connection. It's not very neat. Personally, I would like to redo that and have them straight. It probably would have helped to strip the wires back just a little bit, because what's happening is the two wires can't be next to each other because the casing of the wire is causing them to kind of Y out, which made it really difficult to put both wires next to each other. So, but anyways, you solder it, and then now you have this right angle. Undo that screw post right there and put it on, and you do that for both sides. That's the way it is intended to be built. I'm not going to do it that way, so I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to show you what I think is the easier way for most other people to do this. And I trust a good, strong crimped connection a little bit more than some soldered connections on anything that's high current, especially all that solar stuff I'm working on. You wouldn't solder any of those connections. Our wires are back. So that's soldering it. That's how you do it. Let me now show you the alternative. All right, so these aren't going to be enough to put inside of a ferrule or any kind of a connection, especially if you want to twist those wires together. So we're going to strip some additional insulation off to give us some more wire to work with. And you can see how they were pre-tinned at the end, but we just got bare copper underneath. So sometimes you actually just want to cut that off. It makes it easier to work with because you can't twist those tinned ends together. And now all you would do is take the appropriate sized crimp. The red is the smallest, blue is in the center, yellow is the largest, but the common color schemes. I can get these to fit barely inside of a blue connector, but the yellow connector is just a little bit easier of a fit. And also, the third solution, the one that I'm waiting on the delivery for, is actual rated connectors. The yellow connection is rated for 48 amps, and the blue connection was rated for 28 amps. And since this can do 30 amps, I went with the yellow. So basically, all you would do, everyone has these, or they can get them really cheap, twist your wires together, get an appropriate crimp, and crimp this really well, and you'll have a good, strong electrical connection. And then use your right angle pieces that were included, screw those on there, and plug it in, and then we'll move on to the next part of connecting it. So I'm going to take a pause here and wait for the new connectors to get delivered, and we'll pick up from there. All right, so the item that I was talking about was actually in the mailbox, ready to go. So I didn't have to wait very long, and that's nice. So we can keep going with this streak. Now, let me show you what we got. Like I said, we got the right angle steels, soldering from, your own soldering iron and all that. It would be cheaper, even if you did pay the 20 bucks plus shipping, to order these as it would be to buy all the soldering stuff. So, but this nice, easily connectable, crimped connector will fit in there no problem. It's rated for 48 amps. It gives us the right angle that we need to fit in this tight space. And it's just a much better way to do this, I think. So let's go ahead. We're going to have to fully remove these screws. Since we used eyelets, they're fully enclosed. I like that too. It makes it more stable, inherently more stable. And also these eyelets, I chose them because they have a lot of surface area. So, I mean, as far as connections to this, I trust this a lot more than the way it was intended from the factory. So when you do a good crimped connection, especially when it's like hydraulic, you actually, oh shoot, that went flying across the room. That copper can actually compress, and it forms a bond, a mechanical bond, and it's awesome. But that solder, you don't want to mix solder and crimp at the same time. So cutting those soldered bits off is pretty vital. And we got our wire coming right to the end of that terminal, and we're flattening it where the cut is going to fold in on itself. So this was a perfect fit. All wires are in the right spot. There we go. And I'll get some pictures. I'm going to go back to photo mode here in just a second. So that's how I chose to solve this power supply problem. So live Patrick will now proceed to hand it back over to post-processing Patrick, and I'll see you there. All right, thank you, live Patrick, and welcome back. This is post-processing Patrick, and let's finish up our install. So yeah, that was kind of like one of the big deals with this system. You got to solder it out of the box. That's what they intended. They gave you those crimpable, what looks like crimpable connections, but they don't look trustworthy. Using something like a 10 gauge wire, I tried it with my spade bits I have, it didn't fit. So ordering the extra pieces was so worth it for me, because this is now what I have. A nice right angle connection with a very, very strong mechanical bond. And I know this thing handles almost 50 amps. So worth it for me. Otherwise, the way I did it last time was pretty good too. So let's get both of those connections installed on the head control unit. And here we're going to route the wire for the extension of the temperature probe out the front of the case. And then I wanted to show you where that goes. So behind the back of the control module, right in the center, it needs to be put right here. And you would never probably see this with your own eyes, but there actually is a little temperature icon right there. So that's where it's going to go. Another angle for it, you can see where it's at. It's in the center right next to these capacitors. And then you're just going to go ahead and plug it in. There's just enough length that if you get this right up on here, you can plug it in before inserting the face. This was another mistake I made when I built it the first time, was I put it together as fast as I could or as soon as I could. And once you insert the face, because it's friction fit with these tabs, these plastic tabs, then it gets very difficult to connect anything to it, because you have such a small space in between. And also it gets difficult to remove it, because you have to depress all 4 release tabs at the same time basically to get it to come out. So it's difficult. So what we want to do now is we've got the power leads connected to the control module, and we've got the temperature probe connected, the extension cable for it. We have no more connections to make to the actual control module. So now it is safe for us to go ahead and install it. So I was just giving you a couple of pictures of how everything looks right now, the current orientation of everything, what's connected right now, just the power intake side and everything on the control module. And now what we want to do is go ahead and start connecting the rest of the wires. So I started with the 2 negative leads from the control module. They are going to go on the next 2 openings. Remember, all 3 of these are negative and all 3 of these are positive. But since our leads are coming from the far side, it makes sense to grab the ones closest. So we'll grab the negatives here, and we're going to grab the 2 closest positive ones next. So then we grab the 2 positive. So we're going to be skipping 1 space because that's negative and that's positive. And then shut your protective guard down. Let's go ahead and go to the back side of the case and plug in our temperature probe. And now let's plug in a power cable and switch it on. We want to test everything before we put it together, because again, if something isn't right, it's a pain in the butt to take it apart. So you can actually test everything in this state without having to finish putting it together, and it will be fully operational. So I just fired it up, made sure it was good to go. Everything was good to go. I decided to take some of those included zip ties and just tidied up those wires and then cut the extra off. And everything is ready to go. So we'll go ahead and insert the unit. It snaps into place with friction. And like I said, it's got these tabs. There's one here, and then of course on the opposite side it's the same. So you have to depress those. And like I said, it's kind of difficult to get this removed if you happen to need to. And now we can go ahead and assemble the case. So that's where these silver tapered screws are going to come in play. To get the top of the case, the slits for the ventilation are going to go to the front, because remember, the vacuum is going to be pulling air in through these, so we want air coming in the front across all the hot electronics and then out the back. So line up the holes as best as you can and go ahead and get all the screws seated. So you're going to have 8 of them all together. 1, 2, 3, 4 on one side, and then 4 on the other side. And that ladies and gentlemen, is going to be a fully completed build for this. And if you followed it exactly as I built it, it will be built to the best possible standards. I had seen some bad reviews for this unit where someone said it fried or messed up or whatever. Maybe it was because they put it together and didn't do a good job. Or maybe they bought it pre-assembled, because I think you can find these pre-assembled, and maybe they didn't do a good job. So it's nice that you can save yourself some money and have fun taking on a project like this. So that, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, is the end of the video. This was an all-day thing. I got started like 9 o'clock and it's like 6 now. This was a whole day thing for me to do all of these different steps. So if you appreciate the time that went into it, please like the video and comment on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see further videos I'm going to be coming up with. Trying to get back to it. So I just want to say, once again, this was Patrick from Vicious Computers, and I'll see you next time.